Absolutely. Here's your story, fully punctuated for readability and clarity. I preserved your tone and structure while correcting punctuation, grammar, and flow issues. Asterisk asterisk cut out of the will by mom and stepdad because I'm not family. But now that I've inherited $3 million, suddenly they want me back. Asterisk asterisk so, let's start from the beginning. When I was 14, my life took a sharp turn. My mom decided it was time to settle down again, this time with a man who already had a son from a previous marriage. He was 17, 3 years older than me. And let's just say, we didn't exactly hit it off from the start. The ink wasn't even dry on their marriage certificate when tension started to brew. At first, it was the small stuff. You know, the kind of petty arguments you'd expect when you throw strangers into a house and tell them they're family now. He'd leave his dirty dishes in the sink like they'd magically clean themselves, and I'd be the one getting an earful about the mess in the kitchen. Or I'd find my shampoo mysteriously vanishing faster than usual, only to see my new stepbrother sporting what looked suspiciously like my favorite hair product. It wasn't just the stepbrother antics that got to me. It was how my stepdad handled things. He had this way of just assuming I was the root of all problems. If something was out of place, somehow it was my doing. And mom? She wasn't much help either. She was so caught up in trying to make this new family work that she'd overlook the obvious, always smoothing things over, making excuses for why my stepbrother could do no wrong. A year into this new family setup, mom and stepdad had news they were expecting. That's when the dynamic really shifted. Suddenly, it was all about preparing for the new baby. The house needed redecorating, and guess whose room was conveniently chosen for the nursery? Yep, mine. So, I got shuffled to the smaller guest room, which barely had space for my stuff. It felt like a demotion, a clear message about where I stood in this family hierarchy. As my new half-brother grew up, it became apparent that he was the golden child. My stepbrother, already spoiled, seemed to take cues from this and upped his entitled behavior, knowing he could get away with anything. He dropped out of college and came back home, bringing a whirlwind of trouble with him, from late-night parties to dodgy friends coming and going at all hours. Complaints were met with shrugs from stepdad and sorrowful looks from mom, as if to say, "What can we do?" I started spending more time at friends' houses, anywhere I could feel a bit normal. School became my escape. I joined clubs, stayed late for extra classes, anything to avoid going home before I absolutely had to. This wasn't just teenage rebellion. It was survival. The atmosphere at home was suffocating, like constantly walking on eggshells, waiting for the next blow-up point. One particular evening stands out. I came home later than usual after a school project. The house was quiet, too quiet, which was unusual. I found a note on the fridge saying they'd gone out for dinner. A family dinner I wasn't told about. It was a simple message, but it hit me hard. It was as if they'd forgotten I existed, unless I was there to be blamed for something. The breaking point came not long after my 18th birthday. I'd saved up some money from a part-time job. A job I got despite stepdad's complaints about how it would affect my studies, which was just another way of saying he didn't like not having me around to pin things on. I came home one day to find my room turned upside down. Stepbrother had thrown a party while the parents were out, and somehow my room became the casualty. Beer stains on my project papers, a broken lamp, and my privacy completely violated. I confronted them all at breakfast the next day. Stepdad's response? Cold and dismissive. "You should have been more responsible with your belongings." Mom just sighed and mentioned something about family sticking together and letting things go. But I was done letting things go. During those teenage years, it seemed like everything I did was under a microscope, but not in the caring, let's help you grow kind of way. More like, let's catch you doing something wrong. My stepbrother, who had become a professional couch potato, was somehow always off the hook. My little half-brother was just a kid, sure, but the amount of coddling he got made it clear who the favorites were. I remember working on a big science project I was really excited about. I needed quiet and space, both of which were in short supply at home. I tried to set up a little workspace in the corner of the living room, but it was like I had set up in the middle of Times Square. My stepbrother would blast music, my little brother would be running around screaming, and there was my stepdad, always finding a reason to tell me to move my stuff. "You're taking up too much space," he'd say, or "your project is making a mess." It was frustrating. I felt like I was trying to build something delicate in the middle of a tornado point. One day, I'd had enough. I packed up my project and marched over to a friend's house. Her parents were always welcoming, and they let me spread out my work in their quiet dining room. It was the first time in a long time that I felt like I could think straight. That's when it hit me how abnormal my home life had become. My friend noticed my relief. "You're always welcome here," she said one day, seeing the stress melt off me the minute I stepped into her house. It was a simple gesture, but it meant the world to me. It also made me realize that this wasn't how it was supposed to be. Home should be your safe place, not somewhere you escape from. I started picking up more shifts at my part-time job. If I wasn't at school or a friend's place, I was working. Not just for the money, but because each hour away from home was a little easier to breathe. My stepdad didn't like it, always ranting about how a job was distracting me from school. But I knew the real reason. I wasn't around as much for him to find fault with. As I saved up, the plan to move out started forming more solidly in my mind. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. There was no way Mom and Stepdad would take it well. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt like the only way I could get some control over my life. Then came the day I finally told them. I had found a small apartment not too far from college, and it was affordable on my budget. I sat them down, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm moving out," I announced. The room went quiet. Too quiet. You could cut the tension with a knife. My stepdad was the first to react. "You think you're ready to live on your own at your age?" he scoffed. My mom just sat there, looking between us, her face unreadable. "I am," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "I need my own space. I've saved up enough to manage." The argument that followed was brutal. Accusations were thrown about how ungrateful I was, how I was just trying to get away from my responsibilities at home. My stepdad even tried to guilt me about leaving my little brother behind. "He looks up to you," he said, as if that was enough reason for me to stay in a situation that was making me miserable. But I stood my ground. This wasn't just about wanting my own space. It was about needing it, for my mental and emotional health. Continued in the next message. Would you like me to keep going and fully punctuate the rest as well?